So you're here because you're trying to figure out, like, why does the mental game matter? Because everybody's telling you, like, work on your mental game, work on your mindset. You should have more confidence, and you want to have more confidence. You want to just play better overall, and you're just not. And it's this common thing I know a lot of players run into. So I want to do a coaching session with you. I want to break this stuff down. Let's break it down together. And I want you to really think of this as a one-on-one session with me. So let's sit down. I'm going to share my screen. We're going to walk through some things. I'm going to draw some stuff up, and let's really get into it. So if you're ready, let's go. So I'm going to share my screen here. I got to do this. And there we go. Okay, so you can see that, and then I'm going to pop this up here. So here's the thing. So when it comes to understanding, just like in general, how the mental game works, when it comes to understanding just like how to approach things, where I really want to start is I want to share my screen with this drawing, and I want to break something down. So when we think of the mental game, like a lot of times people get kind of confused, and we kind of think of, we're trying to figure out like what are all the things I can even do to get better. So there's 4 core things you can do. So first of all, you have the mind, and you have your body. So these are the 2 core like areas you can work on. Now within each of these, you can, well, first of all, you can kind of think of mind as like software, right? Like the software in a computer. And then for the body, you can think of that as hardware, generally speaking. Now there's going to be a little bit of a nuance to this when we get into something called mechanics, which you probably know what I mean by that, but I'll break it down. So now when we get into the mind, we have 2 core components of this. So the first thing we have is mental ability. So we have mental ability here. And so what you want to think of when it comes to mental ability is, this is what people are really saying when it's like, I can get into flow. It's when people are saying I can focus like really effectively. I can like reset my mind. Right? Like these are all the skills. And we're not going to get into the details of the skills, but I want to get into the details of just like how to think of all this stuff. So you have, again, like mental ability. So you have flow, you have focus, you can reset your mind, you can bounce back, right? Like bounce back from mistakes. Right? Like hopefully this kind of is starting to make sense, because that's like what most of the times when people are thinking of like what is the mental game, a lot of times like this is more so what they're thinking. And the thing is that what we're going to do when we break all this stuff down is this stuff is all eventually going to lead, when we do get there, I'll kind of give you the prequel to this, but this is all going to lead to confidence. So a lot of people, when they think of like what it means to like, build a mental game and what it means to do all these things, like it's like most of the time people just think like this is confidence down here, like just purely mental ability. But there's also another core component to this. So you have the mental ability, then you have hockey IQ ability. I'll zoom in a bit here. So hockey IQ ability. Right? So this is the second component. And this is, again, in the mind sector. We can draw even a line here, even though, actually, I won't draw a line because it'll probably confuse you more. But you have hockey IQ ability. So this is the ability to, this is like noticing the play, basically. So this is, first of all, it starts with awareness. So awareness, I think I'm spelling that right. Then there's like pattern recognition. Pattern recognition, I'm not going to spell the whole thing. Then you also have anticipation. Right? And then you have like decision. Decision. That's an S. Let me erase that. Decision making. right? So stick with me here, right? So now when we think of like the mental game, now we break it down into two parts. And these are the software. This is the stuff in your brain that you've downloaded, right? So you have the mental ability, like we just talked about, right? So you have mental ability, and then you have hockey IQ ability. And these two things come together, or these two things come together to both form the mind, right? Or the mental game or the software. So if you're not working on both of those things, then you're not really working on the full mental game, but you're kind of working on like a part of it. And so you need all this stuff in order to have a good mental game, but a lot of times people don't work on it. So what I mean is, like, for example, can you just get into a flow and just trust yourself, trust your instincts, and focus on the moment? Are you able to reset after mistakes or emotions or getting high or low? Can you bounce back from mistakes again? Like, are you able to do that effectively? What about when it comes to hockey IQ ability? Are you aware of what's going on in the ice? Have you built the skills that allow you to notice where your team is, where the opponents are? Do you have pattern recognition? Do you notice what patterns are starting to occur on the ice? Can you anticipate plays? Can you notice, okay, there's a pattern happening. Can I assume what's going to happen next? Do I make good decisions? So then based on the information I've collected and the pattern I've noticed and the anticipation, do I make a good decision? Or maybe do I go back to mental ability and I make mistakes there, right? Or maybe you make a good decision, but you don't have something about the body to be able to make it happen. And that's what we're going to break down next. So now when it comes to these are the four pillars, right? So this is the first pillar. This is the second pillar. Then the third pillar, and again, you can work on these in any order, but when it comes to the third pillar for the hardware, you have two core things. So you have physical ability. Try to zoom in so we can do this a little better. So physical ability, and then you have mechanical ability. It's really hard to cram this all in here. I'm going to do this. There we go. Good stuff. Okay, I'm going to do something real quick so you can see this a little better. We'll shrink this stuff down. I got to cut it. Okay, so we'll do that. There we go. Gives us a little more room to work with here. So now we'll bring this stuff over here. If I can get this to highlight. Oh, well, my iPad likes to do this one stupid little thing. There we go. Okay, so now we're looking at the body, right? And so we have the physical ability, which we just highlighted here. So we have physical ability, and then we have mechanical ability, right? And if you want to see a more fancy looking version of this, we can scroll down and I can show you the more fancy version. So if we scroll right to here, this is what they look like when they look a little more fancy, and I take some time to script it up, but that's what they look like, right? And so again, like you have the mental ability on the left, hockey IQ ability, physical ability, mechanical. So mental is like the mental skills. IQ is the decision-making ability and the things we just went over. Strength and conditioning is the physical ability, and then technical skills. So now when we come into this, again, we're not going to get too crazy, but we'll just say like speed, power, cardio, strength, durability. These are some of the core things you need to develop. This is why you should have a good strength and conditioning plan or work with a coach to make sure you do get that figured out. Then when it comes to mechanical ability, you can kind of break it up into components, but fundamentally mechanical ability is just like how well you move. So if you move really effectively, it doesn't even look like a W, there we go. If you move really effectively, then what it does is it allows you to get more out of these things, right? So you move well, then you can get more out of your strength, your speed, your power. And if you move well, when you make good decisions and you move well, then you get more out of it because you're able to actually get higher leverage, right? This is all about leverage, like leveraging your body's movements. So if two players are equal, right? So two players are equally fast, they have the same power, cardio, strength, durability, all that stuff. The one who has better mechanics is going to win. You see this in the NHL. You look at a Quinn Hughes, you look at a Cale Makar, a Nate McKinnon, You look at a McDavid, for example, a Kucherov. Like all of these guys, fundamentally what they have is an insane ability to move effectively. And they get like super high leverage, right? And so if you have really good physical ability, so you have the hardware, right? So again, the physical ability combined with mechanical ability coming together give you the hardware essentially. The only kind of nuance to this is that, and this is what I mentioned earlier, mechanical ability is fundamentally like it's actually that's kind of the wrong thing. This is really kind of software because it's programmed into your brain how you move, but I just find it more effective to include it in body because like it's the way your body's moving. But it essentially, like when we think of a skill for anybody thinking about, okay, so like what is a skill? That's not what I meant. There we go. So what is a skill, right? Well, really a skill is a combination of two core things. So you need to, number one, you need to like make a good decision. So like if we come back to here, you do something, you make a good decision in the hockey IQ realm. So we'll go hockey IQ. So that's like the what, right? It's what do you do? And then you have basically the mechanics. And if you look at like a Train 2.0 or something like that, that's somebody you'll see, or you look at power skating in general, what's really happening is they're working on your mechanics. It's how you move. And so this is the how, right? How. So if you combine these two things together, right, put them in two blocks, this is what you get is skill. Because if you think of anybody like who is really skilled, like yeah, they may move really well, but it's like, do they move well around a pylon, for example? And this is where you can almost even expand this definition a little bit, and think about it more like this. Maybe this is an easier way to think of it. If I can find the eraser again, there we go. If you think of it more as like a game skill, right? Because the reason a game skill matters is because you do the what, so you pick like the right decision at the right time. So this is also another extension. This is when. And you can even explain like technically it's also why, like why you're making the decision, right? But it's really important to think about this stuff, right? Because you're trying to improve your game and you're trying to think of like, what do I work on? Well, you got to bring your attention down to, again, like the reason you may not be playing well might be because, okay, you don't have the hockey IQ ability. You're not doing the what and at the right time, right? So time, you might not be doing that, but you also might not be moving effectively. So you might be making a good decision, but you just don't move well. So it's not working. You're not getting the outcomes you want because you just can't like execute effectively, right? And so at the end of the day, breaking this down, and we come back to the top here, when we look at these four pillars, again, this is the third one, this is the fourth one, these four pillars coming together, I'll fix that. When you bring these four pillars together, basically they lead you to being confident. Because really confidence is like believing you can, there's two different ways to define confidence. So there's kind of like the evidence side of it. So like, have you done it a lot of times? And if you have a lot of evidence, or your evidence is like up or high, then you're going to be confident. If it's low, then you're not going to be as confident. Now, there's also another kind of component that I like to think of with confidence is knowing that you can kind of handle anything. And that does come from evidence, but it also comes from knowing that you've built these skills out and you know you've put in the work, right? So it's kind of like, this is like work, which you could kind of say is evidence. They're definitely connected, but by doing the work and knowing I can handle whatever comes my way, like whatever situation is thrown at me, I have the skill set, I have the ability, right? And this is fundamentally what all of this is hockey ability. right? And so the reason why you're not playing the way you want is probably because you're not really working on your whole hockey ability. When someone says holistic training, it might sound a little corny, but like really what it comes down to is, are you actually working on all four pillars? Are you working on the core pieces? Because if you work on all four of these things, you're hitting the hardware, and so you're working on the hardware here and the software. Where most of the hockey world focuses way too much attention. Let me stop recording there. Didn't mean to hit that button. Where is my highlighter? Right. What most people do, they make the mistake of, is they just spend so much time on this side of the equation, and then they keep asking themselves, like, why am I not playing the way I want? Well, it's because you're not telling yourself when to do the right thing. So you're not saying, like, here's when I should make the play. You haven't programmed the what, like what to even decide, right? So this is going through, studying patterns, understanding what to make, like how to make effective decisions. This is hockey IQ training. We have a hockey IQ specialist, Xander, who is the owner of Conscious Hockey. He's in the Next Level Academy in our programs, helping players really develop that component, because these two things together, this is the mental game, right? And you need to be working on your mental game and your physical game. I know you're working on your physical game. I hope that you're working on both of these things. I hope you're not slacking off on like the physical stuff. I hope you're not slacking off on this. But whatever the weakest pillar is, whichever the weakest one is out of these four, is going to be the thing that holds you back, whichever one. Because if your mental ability, if you can't get into a flow state, can't focus, you get emotional, you lose your cool, and you don't actually take the actions, you have a core mental block, right? And a good way to think of this is like just having some form of like mental blocks. Right? Then if you have a mental block in any way, then you're not going to do the things you know to do. So you can have like really high ability, you can have really high hockey IQ ability, you can have really high physical ability, you can have really high mechanical ability, like move really well, but it doesn't matter because you're scared, you're pissed off all the time, like you're not doing the thing you need to do, right? So what I want you to take away from this lesson in this coaching session is to really take a step back and ask you, what is my weakest of the four? So what is weakest? Right? Really ask yourself that question. Because if you can figure out what the weakest point is in your game and you can really attack that weak point, you're going to figure out what is going to take you to the next level. Because wherever that bottleneck is, it's like limiting your game. If you draw it out, right? So if you imagine like the flow of your skill set, let me do this. So if you imagine the flow of your skill set like a river, right? And we'll draw blue here, right? So there's water flowing this direction, right? Now, what's happening right now when you have a weakness in one of the four, so we'll just break this up into four sections, right? Not even, but, right? So say, for example, you have a mental block. Right, so you have a mental block, you have an IQ block, whichever one it is. We'll just pretend you have one of these things, but I'll draw it out individually. You have like a body block. Body's not doing what you want it to do. And then on the final component is, let's say you have like a mechanical block, or mechanic. So let's just start with mental block. So if you have a block there, and imagine like water has the ability, right? So you could potentially, this doesn't mean you do have this, but like, let's say this is like your ability to play is potentially like this whole range, right? So say this is 100%, 100%, right? So that's 100% capacity. But if you have a mental block and it's squeezing it down like this, right, so it's in the way, then now what happens is that only like let's say like in this case, like, I don't know, 20% of your capacity is going, even if these ones are all like this, right? Like they're only limiting you this much, right? If you imagine like your potential, right? This is, again, we can think of this as your potential, right? If that's your potential, you're being massively limited. So if you open this up, let's say this is like, I don't know, obviously this isn't accurate like visually or proportionally, but let's just say like that's like 80% capacity, right? So now if you just remove that mental block, all of a sudden now, okay, now you can perform at 80% of your capacity. Then it's a matter of what's the next constraint or what's the next bottleneck? What's limiting you now? And you just want to attack that one by one by one by one. And that's it. That's the game. So I want you to really step back and ask yourself, like, where in here are you struggling? Where in this are you not where you need to be? Do you have a mental block? And when I say mental block, this is not like a prideful thing. This isn't like it's destroying your whole game, but like what's limiting you? Is your mental limiting you, right? Is your IQ limiting you? Is your body limiting you? Or is it mechanics limiting you? And this all comes down to a concept called the theory of constraints, right? And so essentially what that means is that in like a business or in many different things, something will only grow until its weakest point. Same as the idea of like a chain. So if you think of this as like a chain, like a link chain, if one of these links is weak, right, but all the other ones are strong, then the chain is only as strong as the weakest point in it, right? Because you could pull, like, let's say you pull like a 1,000 pounds, and all of these have the capacity to hold 1,000 pounds, but this one only has, let's say, like 10 lbs, right? Then what happens is this whole thing, its capacity is only going to be 10 pounds. Even though the rest of the chain has the ability to hold 1,000, it's limited by its weakest link. This is the constraint in this chain. So you need to get rid of that, strengthen that out, and now you look for what the next weakest link is. So find your constraint in your game and figure out where it is in terms of this, and we'll scroll back to the top, figure out where it is in your hockey ability. Do you have a mental constraint, right? Is your mental ability lacking? I can help you with that. Is your hockey IQ ability lacking? I can help you that. Xander can help you with that. Or you can just continue to Google and figure it out. If you need help with the physical game, right? Is your physical ability there? Go to a strength and conditioning coach. We also have an in-season and off-season program you can customize in our programs, but obviously you don't need to do it. There's lots of really great trainers out there. Like, go find somebody. Then same thing with mechanical ability. I think Train 2.0 does a great job. We also have a full system in our programs. At the end of the day, just figure it out and go work with somebody. Figure out what your constraint is, attack it, build the confidence you need, start building some core, like actual clear evidence for yourself. I'll highlight some of these things again. Start building some real evidence, right? Know that you can handle whatever gets thrown at you, build some versatility, some flexibility, and really dig in. Mental game, hockey IQ, physical ability, mechanical ability. And remember that when you talk about skill, or when anybody else is talking about skills, they're really talking about game skills. That's the only thing people really give a shit about. And think about it from the perspective of, you need to develop your high IQ, so what you do and when, right? And then you need the mechanics, the how to get better so that you can continue to move up levels. Because at some point, if you're moving up levels, you're going to be constrained by, like something in the chain is too weak for the amount of pressure being put on it, and that's going to limit you. And so remember the idea of finding your weakest link, attack which one is the weakest of the links, and again, it's basically think of the constraint. What is the constraint in your game? Attack it. And then as that gets stronger, you'll find a new constraint. Attack that, improve it. And this is how you get to where you want to go. So if you have any questions, please comment them below. I'll make another video to kind of break it down in more depth. But I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll talk to you very soon. I hope you enjoy the coaching session.